Hello, everyone. My name is Marianne Antonelli. I am the CrowdStrike Marketing Campaign Manager from TD SYNNEX Public Sector. Welcome to the very first in the series of 6 of the CrowdStrike Product Training mini-series. So if you haven't registered for the other training sessions, please be sure to do so. We have a lot in store for you in the coming months, from Falcon Identity Module, Cloud Security, to Falcon Insight XDR, to name a few. But for today's training session, we'll be talking about the Falcon LogScale. This session will cover LogScale fundamentals and the business use cases that LogScale can be leveraged. This training is brought to you by TD SYNNEX Public Sector, an authorized CrowdStrike distributor and the premier government and solutions aggregator, solving IT challenges for the federal, state, local, and health markets. But before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Your lines will be muted for the duration of the training. However, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A or the chat field. This session will be recorded and can be accessed via the same area where you registered for the training in the first place. Also, be on the lookout for a quick survey before we conclude, and we would really appreciate your feedback so we can make adjustments for any future training sessions. And then, of course, if you have any technical questions, please message Felicia directly in the chat. But before we begin, here's a brief introduction for today's subject matter expert from CrowdStrike, Peter Fabianski. Peter is a solutions architect for the public sector at CrowdStrike. He has over 5 years of experience in network engineering, sysadmin, IT, as well as over a decade of experience as a resource for the partners and customers in the endpoint identity security and threat intelligence spaces. So without further ado, take it away, Peter.
Awesome. Thanks, Marianne. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to our webinar mini-series today. As Marianne said, this is kind of our kickoff here for the beginning of our quarter here, between DLT and CrowdStrike. And really the agenda today is really going to be around LogScale. When I say LogScale, we're talking about, the standalone product and some of the security and non-security use cases. If you're familiar with CrowdStrike's Falcon platform, we are doing a bit of a migration on a lot of our investigative dashboards and our backends to LogScale. You may have heard the term Raptor release tossed around. That's the code name that we've given it. We'll definitely be sure to cover all of those use cases that kind of encapsulate the information that we're covering, in a later mini series. It's just too much content to cover in a singular webinar. So, given that's out of the way, first things first, LogScale, what is it and why does it matter? So before we get into that, I really like to cover, kind of the problems that LogScale is solving. And if you think about it, it's really straightforward, being able to answer questions in real time, because the world that we live in, there's a lot of different, data points that, we have, and being able to understand the data that you're collecting, being able to go through it effectively and being able to answer those questions with that data in mind can be an arduous task. So, from that data growth, we've seen unstructured data growing faster than structured data, by about 71% in the past, year or two. And 90% of all this data in today was created in the past 2 years. So again, if you think about any devices that are coming online, whether they be servers, endpoints, workloads in the cloud, IoT devices, everything is generating data, whether it be diagnostics, whether it be feedback. And we have this massive mesh of information that we're kind of interacting with today. Now, on top of all that data growth, you have the ability to kind of hit these different business and regulatory and compliance needs. So whether folks on the phone are familiar with, whether it be PCI or HIPAA, from, some public sector vertical, compliance needs, or maybe you're trying to be in line with GDPR from a European perspective, or maybe you have some state concerns. Being able to pull a bunch of information from all different, planes from your IT toolkits into a singular place to answer regulatory or compliance questions is again really difficult to do. And sometimes it's not answering the question right now, but 2 years from now, saying, hey, have we been compliant for this, particular, item or action, over the past 2 years? And that's where you need to be able to go pull, 2 years worth of data and, effectively and confidently answer that data. That can be tricky. So the same thing can be said about, different clouds and complexity of, different deployments, with this newer technology. How do you kind of have all of that technology play nice where you can pull all this information together? Again, not anyone's favorite, conversation, but again, budget. If you're working with other tool sets and, other siloed, pieces, and you're trying to have them all plugged together and they're all exponentially, more expensive, and you're not getting, kind of your resultant, solution out of those, various, disparate technologies, how do you keep justifying the cost of them? And of course, our favorites, around the legacy vendors, where you have, kind of a heavier indexed approach, or, with, Splunk, compute and resource intensive with really no incentive to optimize those and make those queries more effective. Now that we've kind of gotten, the real-time observability and, the challenge out of the way, I always like to kind of pivot over here to, our customer value slide with Falcon LogScale. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Falcon LogScale is a, index-free log management solution that CrowdStrike acquired a number of years ago. You may have heard it referred to as Humio. That was the company that we acquired the technology, and it's now called Falcon LogScale. And what we can do is we can answer all of those questions that we've mentioned. We pull all this data in a real time or near real time, kind of ideology, and we can pull this data into different organizational units and different repositories and be able to pretty much in real time, process that information with different automations, different queries, and pipe it to different solutions depending on your needs, whether it be a security or a non-security workflow. So what this does is it gives you the ability to kind of deploy all this information out there, and it makes it, less expensive to install because we can go ahead and hold all this information for longer, cheaper. We actually have the ability to ingest over a petabyte of data per day in terms of throughput. So again, back to, that use case I gave, a couple minutes ago, if you're pulling all this information in and you don't have anything that can really process this information, and keep it in one place because you're generating more information faster than you can store it, that's another great use case for LogScale. I've had a number of customers that'll, go and say, hey, it's too expensive to store all my logs. So we'll go ahead and, kind of pare down, our Windows event logs, or we'll not store all of our networking logs as long as our other logs, which can, identify and, create gaps where if you ever needed that information to be able to kind of have that visibility, from a security perspective, you in turn wouldn't, because you wouldn't have that data anymore. With LogScale, from a security lens, we're going to be able to kind of pull in a number of different tranches of data, but we can go ahead and kind of correlate, first and foremost, your Falcon endpoint detection and response data with other relevant, data sources that are going to be text-based. We can go ahead and pull all that together with our compression and our use of bucket storage, and we pretty much create a ideal data lake or, data aggregation points for all of the events that we're seeing in your organization. And again, being able to have all this together, there's huge value in having all of your data in a centralized location or central data lake, because as you're moving around and developing, your DevOps and your Sec DevOps, being able to have that kind of single pivot point to see where everything's flowing through and what's going on from a security perspective is imperative to ensure that everything that's getting developed is getting secured effectively as well. So we also have, various integrations built out to plug into other tools as well. Whether you're using, a SOAR or incident platform like a Jira or a ServiceNow, maybe you're leveraging, a Phantom or, a Tines for, workflow automation and SOAR. You can go ahead and have alert triggers, in LogScale, so you can, in lockstep kind of have those processes fire off as those criteria are being met. And again, for those things that you don't have out of the box alignment with, we have our APIs. Again, if you're not familiar with low code automation or no code automation solutions, definitely pretty cool tech. Again, we are actually kind of working on our own piece. It's an extension of our Falcon Fusion workflows that will be able to answer this question very soon. But if you're leveraging our various APIs today, you can plug into other applications, so you can go ahead and kind of get that integration that you need first and foremost today. And again, like maybe you're not using visualizations and you have no interest in using dashboards and LogScale, that's fine. I mean, we have customers today using like Grafana, for example, to be able to have native integration with Instana on the APM side and like many other solutions and use cases. So, we definitely give you a great spot to work out of the box with LogScale. But if you're already leveraging other data visualization tools or other applications, you can easily kind of plug all those together so it can play nice with everything. Now, as I've kind of mentioned, this is kind of a new way to think about pulling logs in. So when you're trying to pull all this data together, in past state, you're always trying to figure out, well, what do I need to save and what can I afford to not save? And the nice thing with this is we can go ahead and save everything and log everything so you have all of it the way that we're pulling this information together, whether it's application or machine data. And we can do it, as I mentioned, in real time. We have a number of customers that are running, whether it be infrastructure or security or software development, and all this data in real time that they're generating can go ahead and kind of correlates everything back to be able to have these various applications that these customers may be running. So if there are issues in those applications real time, they can identify them on dashboards, alerts, and other triggers, and be able to proactively pivot and resolve those application issues or security issues for that matter, in a lot faster state rather than being more reactive. As I mentioned, we can take in a number of different data types, whether it be text-based. It doesn't have to be structured. It can be unstructured data too. It can be like application logs, networking logs, really any type of data that we can pull in that fits that queue, even like IoT devices, sensors. All of this information can be pulled through. We have a number of different ways to kind of structure and organize the data that I'll show you when we pop over to the demo portion, but we call them repositories. Basically, you can have an ingest token set up, pull your information into a repository, and then have it live there. And then whether you need everyone to have full view access to the repository or you want to give them partial access, that is achievable as well. So when an event arrives, whether it be that log, we're only indexing the actual timestamp. So that's what makes LogScale actually a lot faster. If you think about some of the kind of more legacy ways, think about back to like the Dewey Decimal System in a library. It's like, okay, you need to have all these filing cabinets with these different cards to go figure out where all these different books and other media content are. And eventually, as your data grows, that entire system grows. That index filing cabinet grows with it. And it gets to the point where you have so much information that filing cabinet may be as big or a little bit bigger than the actual data you're trying to store and index and sort. With us, we're just looking at the timestamp. So if we're understanding where it is coming from and when it's happening, we can go ahead and toss it in there and be able to find it later on pretty easily. In fact, if I pivot over to this next slide, this really kind of explains it better. Since we're not using like light indexing or index free This allows us to effectively be able to do these live searches, insights, alerts, and dashboarding. Once we go ahead and actually pull these events together and ingest them, we can go ahead and store them in memory. That's the other kind of piece that we have attributing to our speed as well. We're not writing anything directly to disk. You don't have to wait for that. So it will sit there in memory for 24 to 36 hours, depending on how your build is. And we'll kind of go from least fastest to least fastest to actually store that information. So if you're running a live queue, you're just querying a cache memory to be able to go and find what you need. And since we're basically looking when it happened, we can go ahead and eliminate the areas of that information of where it didn't happen to be able to make that search faster and basically eliminate all that information. We call it kind of elimination or bloom filters to be able to tell you where that information isn't. From there, we can then effectively just brute force search everything else. We can do the same thing with compressed data as well. We can just search that compressed data. So again, that's another way that we're storing more stuff longer for cheaper. And that's really how we're finding everything that you're looking for. Again, high compression of like 15x on average, combined with cheap storage media is how we kind of give you that perfect place to centralize and store your events for a very long time. Again, with Falcon LogScale, everything's live data, so there's no need for archiving. A lot of competitors will use like say bucket storage for archiving and drive down the data cost. But again, that becomes a little tricky if you're trying to use that data. So with us, the big thing, as I mentioned, is we can go ahead and be able to have all this data kind of in that memory and kind of follow that speed of least when we're keeping it this fast. Going over here, you can go ahead and kind of see combining the bucket storage and high compression of data. It removes that cost discussion on retention and storage of data. So this piece right here with Falcon LogScale's architecture, it's heavily compressed, with segment files, and it's built for cheap storage concepts. So while again, a lot of vendors will use this as an archiving storage like bucket storage, we'll use this as our primary storage, then using local disk as cache. So the great thing here is, as you're building this out, you can go ahead and, kind of take that into account and be able to store things longer for cheaper. Now, this is a number of data pieces that you can see that we kind of integrations with, whether we are trying to integrate in networking information, whether it be with AWS, Palo, wherever, we can go ahead and be able to kind of pull these various data points in. And there's been a number of different awards that we've won across the years as well that really are showing the advantages and the success of LogScale. Now, kind of the main kind of partner delivered services for LogScale here as well. Again, you can go ahead and get this full visibility into the cloud on your IT and application data, eliminate security blind spots. You can troubleshoot issues quick with that fast speed. You can go ahead and store more data for longer periods of time, and you can go ahead and meet compliance requirements while reducing storage costs. I think one of the biggest things that's pretty neat is if you remember that concept of a repository, bringing this data in, you can go ahead and create what we call a view. So you can section that data up from your repository, have different widgets built out into dashboards, and make that a specific view, maybe for your compliance officer. And the only thing that they'll be able to see is their dashboard, and they'll be able to log in, and that dashboard will answer all their compliance related questions. And if they need, additional data, you can go in and give them very granular access with our role-based access controls. So I think that's definitely one of the, kind of salient characteristics that makes LogScale more beneficial. Now, one of the other things I like to talk about is CrowdStream. Again, we've talked about the data problem. We've talked about the data volume and how it's exponential. One of the big things here is getting data into LogScale and how do you kind of do it neatly. And if you haven't heard of Cribble, that's the other piece that comes into this CrowdStream integration. Cribble is kind of a data like a data, kind of visualization or a data auditing, solution as well, I'd say. They do a very good job of, being able to put data where it needs to be and kind of trimming data down and making it more simple for what you're trying to focus on. They have a number of different product lines, but CrowdStream is really focused on that Cribble search function. So what you can effectively do is use Cribble to be able to pull in your network data, all of your logging data from your servers and your workstations. Maybe you're pulling endpoint data in too. Maybe you're pulling IoT data in and all this stuff. And maybe necessarily you don't want all of it just sitting out and being able to be, searchable. That's fine. Maybe you just need to store it for compliance needs. So you can go in and, with CrowdStream, be able to configure all this in a GUI piece to go ahead and pipe your data over into LogScale, and then say maybe with your Falcon data, you don't want all of the little data points going into LogScale. Okay, cool. We'll go ahead and compress and kind of, take the couple pieces that you want of this data, put into LogScale, pump the original data over into, an S3 bucket for archive, and you can always replay it, with their replay search function to be able to go ahead and see that information if you ever need to adjust it or have any data, validity issues. Brett has a great question. What if they already own Cribble? How does that work? So CrowdStream itself is actually a SKU that we can sell that our CrowdStrike RSMs have the ability to sell as a package. So if you think about it, you would go and work with your other OEMs and you'd have to put together a quote. The power here is that we can go sell CrowdStream and we can go ahead and be able to just sell that without having to go and get multiple OEMs involved. That being said, if the customer wants to leverage any other data sources besides Falcon data for CrowdStream, that would be an original kind of Cribble search partnership, which is fine. We just get the Cribble reps involved. If they already own Cribble search, again, depending on their their data throughput and their licensing, they might need to be bumped up depending on their LogScale needs. But that's easy. They'd just be able to go and grab the various LogScale and other Falcon packages and be able to plug LogScale in and route data over there. So very easy to accomplish. Good question. And again, if you're not familiar with CrowdStream, I think I kind of already went through this. You can kind of collect all this data and then process it, normalize it, enrich it, optimize it, be able to route the data to LogScale to have what you need, and then route anything else you don't need, into S3 storage, or just don't keep it depending on your use cases. Again, being able to collect, enrich, and cut some costs definitely helps with LogScale. Being able to get this into the hands of your engineers and your DevSecOps teams, and kind of learning the different query languages and how our parsers work. Definitely has its own challenges. That's where partner communities can come in to be able to help our customers with that too. So being able to come in and say, oh, hey, well, if you're looking to migrate your data over, let's go ahead and help you do that. We'll help you build out dashboards. We'll help you build out queries. This is a perfect example where the partner community can easily be able to kind of plug this together with LogScale, with CrowdStrike, and be able to offer that help and services to your partner base. And again, the last slide I'll cover right here is really around kind of that journey, because I don't think I'd ever go and talk to a customer and say, hey, I know you use a SIM today, or you have a data logging thing today, whatever vendor you're using. Let's go ahead and move all of your data right now into LogScale. I don't think anyone would ever go for that. You need to have kind of a solidified migration path. And this is kind of our solidified migration path today. I didn't talk about this yet, this LTR piece. You'll actually hear it referred to as FSR, Falcon Search Retention. We've kind of rebranded or renamed it. There's a couple different things that you'll hear about very soon. But what effectively that does is, say within Falcon, you want to keep your data for longer than 30 days. You would have to extend that contract, or you would have to use FDR, Falcon Data Replicator, and pipe that data somewhere else. Whether it be a Splunk, whether it be an Elastic, wherever your customer keeps their data. And today, we can go ahead and instead use FSR, Falcon Search Retention, and just pipe it over into LogScale. And keep it for anywhere from 30 days to a year, depending on their needs. So I think this is a great way to get customers familiar and comfortable with LogScale and the CrowdStrike query language, and how our logging capabilities differ from the traditional kind of logging methods. You'll also see, and again, I teased it at the beginning, we are going through a migration period right now where we almost have all of our customers adopted onto our new Raptor backend, which is powered by Falcon LogScale. So once that's done, that's another great area where customers can leverage that particular piece to get more familiar with LogScale itself, because the same queries will be prevalent. You'll see similar dashboards being built out in kind of a low code, no code way, and you'll be able to pivot off of those dashboards to be able to go into a LogScale-esque kind of XDR view where you can run different queries and pivot and build tables, and a lot of the similar things that you can do in vanilla LogScale today. So I'd say those are the two kind of big pieces where you can kind of fill out step one and get customers familiar with the concept of keeping other data elsewhere. Now, step two, again, what's the biggest things that you're seeing in customer environments besides EDR data? It's going to be like your Windows logs, and it's going to be your networking logs. Again, if you have C-level executives that are coming down and saying, hey, we need to do more with less and tighten budgets. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and try and dump logs and keep our SIM spends down. Well, if we can go ahead and still keep that data and cut the SIM spend in half, or 30%, that's still a win in a lot of C-level executives' books. So if we can do that and pivot the data over into LogScale and start correlating that together with EDR, now you're getting a multifaceted solution that's keeping the guys writing the checks upstairs happy, and the guys that are sitting on the keyboards analyzing the data happy as well, because they're not losing all of their information. And again, I'd say step three is kind of a suggestion. You'll see how that will go depending on your customer and your environments. But you can definitely start piping other data in there, like cloud, SaaS application, security alerts. Again, very similar to what you'll see in our XDR kind of offering that we have out today. And when we get to that mini series, I'll be sure to draw kind of the different characteristic differences and similarities that you may see in this kind of build. But that's it for slides. I'm going to pivot over here to our demonstration portion. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A while I'm swapping over screens here. All right. You guys should be able to see my screen here. Marianne, Caleb, can you guys just confirm that you're looking at the
good.
screen? Perfect. Thank you. I don't want to be that guy where I'm talking at the wrong screen for 10 minutes. So what you're looking at right now is LogScale in itself. Again, I mentioned that there's different versions of LogScale. This is kind of the LogScale-esque itself that you'll see. You'll also see if you have it in your NFR or customer environments, you'll see the same kind of query type feel in the kind of back end. And if we have some more time at the end, I'll definitely pivot over and show you guys some other stuff too. But from here, you can kind of have your different results and event streams. You can go ahead and see your different raw data coming in here. I have a bunch of different data that's getting replayed into here for demonstration purposes, like some networking data, some Falcon data. One of my favorite things is you can format it kind of in your preferred formatting, depending on what you want to look at. And you can also see your results and be able to filter on the filter fields on the right-hand side. So if we want to just be able to, go in here and filter repo by maybe IAS, we can go ahead and go and do that and just take a look at our data. And if I want to make sure that's in, JSON format, I can go here and format it into my JSON format and look at it in my preferred kind of viewing. So there's a number of different ways to be able to kind of look at this information and be able to, look at, your different data points. If you want to get a little more, wild with your, various queries, you can come in here and be able to look at, different, snapshots, be able to look at, various responding hosts, build out bar charts. I mean, if we look at this one, this is a, repo of, various, correlates, origin IDs, pretty straightforward of the last 48 hours. But if I wanted to bump this to the last 30 days, we can go ahead and do that, and it loads up in a few seconds versus some other solutions that you may see may take a little longer than that. You also can do all sorts of different other visualizations. Like I think this one's pretty cool with correlate data. We can actually map it over to a world map. So again, let me expand this to like 1 year's worth of data just to show you that we are capable of pulling data and running queries and actually fetching it back. So now you can see these are just remote connection hosts that we're just mapping by remote IP and mapping on a map. So you can zoom in and kind of see where this data is coming from. If you want to be able to throw this up on a TV in your SOC or a similar kind of view, maybe remote connections, and click this little button where you want to have the data feed in live, you can do that. And we have customers that leverage this data exactly like this. One of the things that I like with the ability to query and kind of build out your queries is, say you like this widget and the way it's sitting right now. You can come over here and be able to click save. And you can go ahead and click Save Dashboard widget. In this environment, I don't have the ability to save new dashboard widgets. We have specific demo environments. We want them to stay neat. So that is why you see that I have a little lock there. But in another way, you'd be able to save that as a dashboard widget and be able to go put it on a dashboard. And then, set your respective RBAC. And it doesn't have to be like this. But all this data is actionable too. So you can come back here and be able to see all the different datas and all the different events that's actually being driven behind the actual widgets itself. And I think there's a MITRE one in here as well for a heat map, because again, we are, first and foremost trying to help our customers, stop breaches from various adversaries. I think this one's really cool too, because if you're having issues with a lot of, different, customers, and you're trying to heat map across, the different detections that they're seeing to MITRE tactics and techniques, you can go ahead and be able to, kind of pivot this out and be able to see, 7 days worth of data, 30 days worth of data, and actually go in and be able to, click into the information, or be able to go and see, various labels and unformatted values. And drill down into the data. It's actually actionable. Now, pivoting over to the dashboards function, let's show you what dashboard looks like. So this is a sample of just like a event summary dashboard. And what we'll do is we'll bump this out to like 7 days, just so we have a good amount of information here. And you can see a number of different widgets. One thing I want to show you with these different widgets is if you're trying to filter this total endpoints widget, maybe you want to have it drill further down into, just Windows endpoints or just Linux, you can actually repurpose this, be able to click on this piece. And again, my permissions disallow me from being able to do it right now, but you'd be able to click on this, pivot back over to the actual underlying query that's powering this various widget, and in turn adjust the widget and resave it as a new one for total server endpoints or total workstation endpoints, whatever you're trying to do there. Now, in this particular dashboard, the way that we have it configured is you can actually go in here and have different parameter filters. So you don't need to have to understand how to write queries and how to, kind of filter through information once you do this. So it's very easy to set this dashboard up, and then maybe in this case, go give it to a level 1 analyst so they can go ahead and be able to filter through this data. Whether you want to go and take a look at, this particular host, maybe you've been having issues with it, you can go ahead and hit apply parameters and be able to see the entire dashboard change in a few seconds and have it get filtered down to that specific host, just to look at all the different data points. And if I clear this out, we'll go ahead and put that back to star. you can actually see various formats of the data points that we have. So of course we have counts, we have bar charts. This one's actually by called a Sankey. So you can actually hover over and see your different detections and your preventions and see how they filter in with high, critical, or low. So again, that's a great kind of PowerPoint visualization if you're showing that off to an executive or have a quarterly review. That's a great way to show you kind of that visualization of data. And you don't even have to show it in a PowerPoint piece. Actually, thinking out loud here, show them this in the form of a dashboard if you want to. You can show them, hey, this data is live. We can go in here and be able to show you and dig deep again. Don't know if your customers have a lot of executives that want to dive deep into the minutia, but every now and then you find a C-level that came from the world of the IT and security kind of management, and they want to kind of take it down a couple levels. So it's always good to have that one in your back pocket. The great thing with this is you can actually see all this different data, and it doesn't also have to just live in here. Again, like say top endpoint detections by severity weight, you can go ahead and pivot back to the detection via CrowdStrike and go look at it in the Falcon UI. Again, I'm not logged in here, so that's why you see it hitting me with a login page, but perfect example right there. On the settings side, this is where you can kind of set up, various, access control, your data connectors. This is where you can kind of map out your various event filters. And you can also create packages as well. So the one thing I want to mention here in the settings is the package is going to effectively set up your own parsers. So say if you have a type of data, whether it be, let's just say Palo, or you're using Corelight or Windows event logs, whatever it may be. When that data gets to LogScale, what do you do with it? Okay, how is it parsed? How is it getting mapped? How are we going to effectively translate it to be able to, appropriately filter and label it? That's what the parser is doing at a very basic level. So you have the ability to build your own parsers, but we went ahead and we've actually had a marketplace that we've been expanding with all of these parsers. We had, I want to say like 50, about a year ago. We have over 100 now in here. So all of your, networking guys, whether it be, like Cisco, whether you're looking at, I think like Palo's in here as well. You have like Corelight, Zscaler's in here as well for your SSC needs. We have Extra Hop. You get the idea. We have a number of different companies that you can come in here and see all this different data to be able to map all this stuff back. And let's just say, well, you keep picking on Palo here. You go here and take a look at the Palo package. You can go ahead and see that the package actually has a number of things in here. And again, this one's just like a firewall parser, but if we pivot back over, let's see, maybe CrowdStrike FDR. If we go over here, you can go ahead and see in this package that there's other things in here like dashboards and alerts and use cases and support and installation and all that stuff that you have, kind of built in here. The other cool thing is you can build, as I mentioned, your own packages. But what this means is, say you're working with a customer who's POVing LogScale and you want to go and build something out to help them visualize the data, you can literally build something out in your like NFR or like your community edition of LogScale, and then be able to package it up as a package, send it to your customer. They can hit install and they will start to see that data get visualized. I think that's a very important thing that is really helpful to our partner community, because they can go ahead and leverage this as a selling tool and a post-sales tool. So if you think, for any of our partners that want to, build implementation services, you can work on building out, specific use cases of data and then have these already staged and ready to go to help onboard and enable your customers. Now, I haven't shown you alerts, and again, you're not going to see it up here because of my permissions, but if I pivot over to a different environment here, you'll now see this little guy called automation. I mentioned one thing here called community, edition of LogScale. that's actually what I'm in right now. So if you're not familiar with LogScale, literally anyone can go fire up their own free version of LogScale here. So if I go over here and go back to my different repositories, so you can see I have some Humio data that's coming in, some test data. I can pipe some more data in here. The license information on Community Edition limits you to 16 gigs per day, 5 users, and you only can retain the data for 7 days, and you can only have 1 repository. So if this is something that is growing beyond your limits, or you need, you need to keep the data longer for more use cases, please let myself or our friends at DLT know, so we can have that conversation and get you guys a NFR, or not for retail, license. Again, we're trying to get this into the hands of our partners so you guys can get familiar with it. So I won't be the first person to, say, no, I want to be able to get you what you need to succeed. With that out of the way, you can see these different views, within our repository, whether it be, organizational activity, audit data. But let's pivot over into our FDR data, our Falcon data repository. Now, I had some saved queries over here where I was filtering, by different agent IDs and different, customer IDs, trying to track down, a specific detection. This is where you can easily put that query in and be able to, come over here and go look at, a source process ID, or, a detection ID, depending on your data that you're looking for. And then in turn, say you wanted to then pivot this data into some type of table, you could go ahead and do that. And then from here, you could then go save it to a dashboard widget. So again, to show you that, tie the knot off on that other use case, that's kind of how that workflow would work. If we pivot over to automation, however, this is where you can go ahead and set up those various alerts, as I mentioned. So we've talked about how the data gets into LogScale, what you can do with the data once it gets into LogScale, how you can manipulate it into executive level dashboards, security use cases, automation workflows, compliance needs. But how do we get stuff out of LogScale? And that's where automation comes into play. So you have a number of different things, and the big thing here is going to be your alerts. And if we go ahead and click on this alert, and you can see I just threw something together with, a group by country on our data in here, but you can drop, different queries in here. And what you can do is you can give it a name, you can give it a trigger query, and then from here, you can give it an action. So I have the alert enabled, but I actually don't have any actions set up. So let's go over here and show you guys what actions do. So we go and give it a test. We can then use templates for different trigger actions, or we can use packages. I don't have any packages installed, but if we go install a package, we can go ahead and show you some examples, even though that's. So we'll go and click install on my community edition, continue, install. And then we have that package installed. So if we go back and look at actions, we should have, a FDR, CSV upload file. That's an action now, but we can also set up, other actions in here as well. Some examples would be firing off, via, a webhook. Maybe you want to send this data over to an automation tool or a ticketing system. You really can build these different actions to really do whatever you'd like. But again, if you have more questions on this, please let us know. We can walk you through, and I can show you a better example. But those are, kind of, the big points around, automation. The idea is that we can go ahead and take this information that's coming in, consume it in a meaningful way. And then if there are certain actions that we're identifying, we can go ahead and have them trigger alerts to then push that data out to our other solutions to be able to make everything kind of flow in a more efficient manner. So, that's everything I have for today's little session. But again, before we pivot over to Q&A, I just wanted to pass the torch over here to Caleb here for a moment.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I appreciate that. And really appreciate you jumping on today to give this overview to the team. I thought this was very beneficial. Secondly, I wanted to take the time to thank all of our attendees for attending. Again, a few more of these throughout the year, the second one being April 4th. So encourage you all to attend. That'll be around the EDR platform overview. So it's a great episode that we'll have there. And then also Felicia will be dropping a survey. It should be jumping up on your screen any second now. So please fill that out and give us some honest feedback so we can make sure that we improve these as time goes on. And again, thank you all for attending. Encourage you guys to make sure that you sign up for the rest of the ones and pass this along to other people that you think it might be beneficial to. If you have any questions, reach out to myself or any of the account managers you might regularly work with over at our CrowdStrike distro, and then we're more than happy to loop you guys into Peter or anybody else within the public sector team if you're looking for anything when it comes to quotes or demos or things that might help you better your situation when talking to prospects. And then I'll turn it over and we'll go back to the Q&A. So Marianne.
Great, thanks a lot, Caleb. I see a question here for Peter. What enables LogScale to be faster at running queries than other log management platforms?
Great question. So what that does is there's a number of things that enable LogScale to be faster at running queries, but the big thing is the fact that we have kind of index light or indexless type of data ingestion. So as I mentioned before earlier on, we don't need to index all the information and know where it is. We can effectively just take that date and timestamp. Once that information is parsed, we can then go ahead and process it, and then we can have it available for searching in a very, very quick manner. So effectively, if you're looking at, past 30 days worth of data, it's like, okay, perfect. Since we know that we're looking at 30 days worth of information, we know we don't have to go back further than that. And if we know that that information is going, networking type data, okay, we don't need to look at like Falcon, EDR data. And then from there, we can then just brute force that information and brute force search it and be able to find it. And that's really a number of ways. In addition to that, the hardware that we're running it on is also the other kind of key piece on how we're keeping that nice and fast. So great question.
Great. I have another one here. Can you store other non-security data in LogScale?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I mentioned this before, LogScale was through an acquisition a number of years ago, and we've really focused on, leveraging the security use cases, but we have plenty of customers that are using us for compliance use cases, IoT use cases, and manufacturing and other types of use cases where if you can think of a device that can plug into a network that can generate data and logs, we can go ahead and send it in as long as it's, has a time and a date stamp.
Cool. All right. I see another question here. What packages do you have out of the box for LogScale?
Oh yeah, great question. We cover that at the end, but we have a little over 100 different packages, and you can build custom packages as well. So this enables folks to be able to collaborate and also leverage our packages that we have right out of the box for your common enterprise applications like your Zscalers, your Palos, Falcon, data replicator, other things like that. But great question.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. I am not seeing any more questions. Calling once, twice. All right, everybody.
Perfect.
See you on the next episode, which is April 4th. Be sure to check it out, register, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.